we're joined via Zoom by Ahmed Mayet from the Foundation for Human Rights and Acting Deputy Director General for Human Settlements in Upgrading and Emergency Housing, Dr. Zoleka Sokopo. Thanks very much for joining us, to both of you. We appreciate your time. Let me start off with you. Dr. Zoleka. Post 1994, government established this Reconstruction and Development Program. Do you think that this program is moving on and has been a success for South Africans since it started? I mean, looking at just the clip that we played now, people still living in mud houses. What is the program? What is the problem with this program?
Thank you very much for the question. I'm saddened by what we just viewed. But we also have to acknowledge that there is a lot that has been done in terms of the provision of the RDP housing. More still has to be done. We cannot live with ourselves when we see communities like that, and that are destitute, that cannot go to their counsellors, that cannot go to anyone for assistance. So I'm really feel shameful that we still have those type of communities. Yeah. At the same time, I would like us to also acknowledge all the gains that we have had in the past of the delivery of almost 4 million housing opportunities throughout South Africa.
Yeah. All right. Let me come to you, Ahmed. I mean, adequate access to this fundamental right, still a challenge. I mean, you look at the number of not only informal settlements as we talk now, we're also just talking about, people having to put up, in mud structures, which, we can't have that sort of situation in our country. Yes. Just look at something that just happened now with the recent floods, for example. Yes. One mistake, that housing is gone. But anyway, what do you believe this issue can be attributed to? I mean, I hear Dr. Zoleka saying that, it is shameful and so forth. And I wonder if we can put it all on government. But, where do you stand on this? Where our biggest problems are?
Yeah. Look, I agree that there is a need for housing. Yeah. The new government inherited a huge backlog from the apartheid times, and had to do a catch-up in building homes. It did so remarkably well under the RDP, but then a time came when it stopped building houses for whatever reasons not known, because you could see it from, the seminal case of Grootboom, where Grootboom and the people living in a squatter camp went to the courts. They went as far as the Constitutional Court, and the Constitutional Court said that the government was under an obligation to build homes, and they said they should build a home for Irene Grootboom. But what happened in that matter was that she waited and waited and waited, and she eventually died without seeing a house. So it shows that somewhere along the line, on the delivery of housing, there's something which is not taking place from the side of government. Yeah. That there is some break, in the delivery of housing. Because Irene Grootboom waited for more than 15 years and she didn't get a house. And there's been no explanation given for that.
Yeah. Ahmed, what kind of conversations are you then having with government? And I'm going to put it on the Department of Human Settlements, and I'll come back to you, Dr. Zoleka. But what kind of conversations are you, as the Foundation for Human Rights perhaps having with government institutions, with human settlements, because it falls directly, in their portfolio?
Yes. Look, what we've done so far at the Foundation for Human Rights is, we can't litigate because given our status, we're not a legal NGO. Yeah. But I remember, if I can speak of my time at the Legal Resources Center, we did a lot of cases where we stopped eviction of people from buildings in and around Hillbrow, Braamfontein. People didn't have any choice but to get into that housing. And moving them out from there would mean that you put them out in the streets again. Yeah. So then what we would do is we would use the court decisions which said that if the municipality wants to move people out, they have to provide alternative housing. Yeah. And we would hold them to them.
Yeah, yes. Dr. Zoleka, I want to talk about the fact that, recently communities in KZN. Some people were left, many people in fact, left stranded due to the mudslides and floods, homes destroyed. I mean, you talk about the fact that there is this gap and there's a backlog in terms of housing being given. This backlog is now bigger. I mean, if we look at the situation in KZN, how do you plan to tackle the already existing problems that we've had, the fact that so many people are already without housing, and then now this is added, given to what's just happened now in KZN? How do you even begin to address, the already existing problem and then now having to address this problem?
Thank you very much for the question. I do think that I need to first correct what has just been said, that we had stopped building houses. It's not correct that we have stopped. We haven't stopped. If you looked at what we are currently doing, there are several programs that are in place where we are actually building programs, where we are actually building houses. We also have programs, for example, that is solely focusing on informal settlements upgrading. With regard to KZN, there also has been a number of programs that are implemented in KZN, including the replacement of mud housing. They have a program and they had additional funding towards the end of the last financial year to also ensure that they address the issues of mud housing, which is where the majority of people that find themselves destitute in this current rains are. And secondly, the issue of informal settlements upgrading, which also are people that are affected with the floods, especially in eThekwini. We are going to be tapping also into the program that is already in place to ensure then that we upgrade the informal settlements. As you know that in addition to the program, we also have dedicated funding for informal settlements upgrading that we call it Informal Settlements Upgrading Partnership Grant. It's partnership because it's partnership with the communities, it's partnership with everyone South African that has to be part of the development of housing in this country. Are there weaknesses in the program, in the implementation of the program? Yes, there are weaknesses. However, we should also not deny the fact that we're still continuing with the building of houses. Thousands and millions of houses are still being built as we speak.
Yeah, I'd like to talk still to you, Dr. Zoleka, about the issue of handing over houses and handing over RDP homes. The easiest example that I can think of now, the quickest in my mind, is just in Diepkloof. There was an issue with RDP houses that were supposed to have been handed over to the communities close to the hostel there. They were then destroyed because there was issues about who would be getting homes and who wouldn't be getting homes. So it seems that there's many problems actually with your handing over of homes program, that even when they are built, there's other issues that are pertaining to who gets the homes and when others will be built for other people. So what other issues are you having apart from the actual building of these homes? It seems that there are secondary and other issues that are attached to this.
The issue that you're talking about is issues around beneficiary administration.
Yeah.
And it is mostly managed at local level, because they are at local level. They are the people that understand who is supposed to get housing first. Secondly, at national level as well as at provincial level, there is what is called the housing subsidy system, which is a database that records everyone who has ever received a house. It also records those people that have been approved to get a house. The challenge is then, once that process has been complete, is to ensure that at local level, the rightful owners, which is what sometimes the complaint is about with the community, that the rightful owners are not the ones that are occupying, but somebody else that is occupying. And that is something that we still trying to manage and trying to resolve, because it continues.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Ahmed, I heard Dr. Zoleka saying that everyone must be part of addressing the housing issue. And I suppose what she means by that is that, it shouldn't just be, her or people, government representatives or leaders. What else can we look at? Obviously, when we think about housing, we obviously see it as a government issue. It's in the Constitution. Is there any other way, I don't know, maybe the private sector, or who else should be joining hands with government in addressing these issues? One of the issues that have been raised is that, prices, building materials and so forth, it seems as though private sector isn't coming on board. They're escalating their prices instead of actually lowering their prices. Are those some of the issues that we're talking to then?
Yes, no, I think the biggest problem is, as the doctor pointed out, is implementation. When it comes to implementation, there's always problems. And she mentioned the housing list. I know that, in Johannesburg, we acted for people trying to get onto the housing list. And people said they've put in their names on the housing list 20 years ago. But, the government can't produce that list to show where these people are on that list. Mm-hmm. So that creates a lot of problems, because then you can manipulate who goes on to get a house before people who have been waiting on the list for more than 20 years.
Yeah. How do we better this list? And it's unfair for me to ask you, but now that you've experienced people having problems with this housing list, where are the problems? Where's the gap, and how is it supposed to be addressed? And I think that, Dr. Zoleka, it's important. Perhaps you here to listen to this suggestion.
You see, the problem is that they always speak of this housing list, and they'll tell you, look, we can't give these people housing because they're not on the list.
Yeah.
The people who are affected will tell you, no, but we applied for the houses. We're supposed to be on the list more than 20 years ago. And then we ask, can you show us the list? Government has been unable to show us that list. So there's a lack of transparency. We need to know where that list is.
Yeah.
And if you have the list, share it with the people, because if you don't, you're creating suspicion that there is corruption, that someone is paying to jump, from bottom to get to the top.
That's it.
And get housing before everybody else who's been waiting patiently.
Yeah. Dr.
So in order to avoid that kind of thing happening, you need transparency.
Yeah. Let's talk to that transparency then, Dr. Zoleka. Is there any way that you're looking at how this issue can then be addressed? Because we can't say, yes, we have the problem, we have an issue with housing lists, but there's nothing being done to address the issue. Ahmed points out some of the problems there, and I wonder if you're obviously hearing the same things from local governments that are also telling the same story, or maybe even responsible for the issue of housing lists being problematic. Is there any other way to deal with the issue?
Yes, there is a proposal on how to deal with the matter.
Yeah.
But before I indicate that, let me tell you the value chain on how this list is generated.
Yeah.
When you are in need of a house, you go to your local municipality. There's a form that you complete there. The form gets completed and is uploaded in a database, and national is called the Housing Needs Register.
Yeah.
So in that housing needs register, the municipalities as well as the provinces, they are supposed to use that to determine where the projects are, which means where are the majority of the people with the need. And then once then a project is identified, the people need then to be moved from the housing needs register to what I had previously indicated as the housing subsidy system. It means now you are ready to get a house. We are putting you in the housing subsidy system.
Yeah.
Between two, then there is some lapse in terms of the administration. The new proposal that has come with the minister is of digitalization of that beneficiary list. So when you want to check where you are, you can check on your app and see how far is there a project in your area. Are you in the list? Are you next in the list? Or if your house has been wrongfully located to somebody else, you will be able to also see that.
But surely this process shouldn't be taking up to 20 years. The fact that people are saying 20 years ago, I put myself on this list, I asked to be put on this list, and 20 years later, I still don't have a house. Surely it shouldn't be taking up to 20 years.
It shouldn't. It shouldn't. You are 100% correct. It shouldn't. And until we can verify those people that are actually in the housing needs register, we can be able to do that at national level using the ID numbers and see whether they have registered in the housing needs register.
All right, Dr. Zoleka.
I can invite the fellow interviewee to come and check that housing needs register at the national department.
All right, thanks very much. I think we have lost Ahmed, but I'll certainly pass the message on to him. Thank you very much for being with us, Dr. Zoleka Sokopo. We appreciate your time, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
All right, you're most welcome. That's Dr. Zoleka Sokopo, Acting Deputy Director General for Human Settlements and Upgrading and Emergency Housing, as well as Ahmed Mayet from the Foundation for Human Rights.